I wanted to say that in the experience of the example you often use of the car rushing down the hill and applying the brakes or getting in the front of the car.
Momentum. Don't want to wait till you're at the bottom of the hill to stop the momentum. Better to do it just as it is leaving the crest of the hill.
I just wanted to point out that I figured out that my use of alcohol sort of is like turning off the lights and not realizing that I'm going down the hill is false. You know, I'm going to crash. So learning how to drive the car, put on the brakes, and turn it around is important.
Let us give you something here that we think will be helpful. Beating up on yourself about any behavior that you have chosen, or even any behavior that you are choosing, is counterproductive because your inner being never beats up on you about behavior. Ever. So, which feels better? I soothed myself a bit through alcohol, or in my weakness I chose something to numb myself out. Which felt better?
In my weakness I chose something to,
Well, now we're going to say it again because that was the wrong answer.
All right.
Because what you chose was what society wants you to accept. We want you to feel it from the way your inner being feels about you. Your inner being is always giving you the benefit of the doubt. And when you don't, you cause a vibrational separation. It's too strong a word, but you go out of the receptive mode. So when you say, I don't want to depend on alcohol, but I do want to feel better, and my actions were well intended. And how do you know what you do want until you know what you don't want? Isn't there a time when a drink takes the edge off and makes you feel better? Do any of you say, I should never ever drink? I should never drink because it's wrong? Is it wrong? Is it in and of itself wrong?
Not in and of itself.
You started the conversation about momentum. So what is it that makes that seemingly a wrong choice?
It screws up my emotional guidance system horribly. I do not read my emotions or those around me when I use.
We don't disagree with that, but there's a deeper, more important conversation that we want to have first. And that is, what is it about having a drink? What is it that makes the momentum take it to an unwanted place? Because a drink in and of itself is not an unwanted place. That's stopping the momentum at the top of the hill, taking the edge off, feeling good. There's a big school of thought that says that if you are an alcoholic, that you can never take a drink. And we're not wanting to step on any of those toes, but we do want to explain that it's a subject of momentum. It's a subject of focus, more than it is a subject of biological response to alcohol. And so there are a whole lot of people who have convinced themselves that they should never, ever, 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 ever do that or that or that or that or that. Let's say that they should never, ever do that because it never goes well. It always leads to something not good. And we say, but in the meantime, what it's leading to that's not good is self-bashing. Can you find a way of loving yourself rather than beating up on yourself? Because there's a big difference between getting into the receptive mode where you are following impulses from broader perspective and using willpower to not do things. You see what we're getting at? So using willpower to not do things, to say, I will never do this again. This is the bane of my existence. This is what is causing all of my problems. We want to say, no, there was a problem before that. It was a problem of misalignment that this for a little while seemed to soothe, and your motive of being soothed is not the wrong motive. That's really all we're saying with this. It's not the wrong motive to want to like yourself, and it's not the wrong motive to want to feel good. That's not the wrong motive. There could not be a righter motive than to want to feel good. And so what goes wrong with so many who are wanting to avoid alcohol or addiction of any kind is that, okay, maybe it's a good idea to not take that stuff. Maybe it does cause momentum to take you where you don't want to be. But do not go into a place where you're beating up on yourself. If you have to use self-inflicted punishment in order to prevent yourself from doing things, you're not in the receptive mode. Ooh, that was such a good thing. to be said. We don't think anyone is going to easily leave behind something that they find not good for them while they're in the mode of beating up on themselves. And the only reason that it works at all is because you live in a society that has trained you to respond to negative impulses instead of listening for your guidance of alignment. Oh, this is so central to everything that we know and teach.
It's very powerful.
We want to guide you to receptive mode, not to pushing against yourself when you're not. It's like the difference between helping someone get so tuned in that they would never ever harm another and putting them in jail and torturing them because they harmed another. It's equivalent to that. It's exactly the same conversation. We would so much rather that you feel so good that you only attract good rather than that you get out of whack and then beat up on yourself for being out of whack.
Awesome.
Make sense?
Awesome. Yeah.
All right. So now what do you want to talk about?
Well, that was pretty much what I wanted to talk
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
That's really good, isn't it?
Yeah.
So next time you feel inclined to have a drink, you might say to yourself, what's this about? What condition am I trying to soothe? And could I soothe around the condition? But if you've waited until you're at the bottom of the hill, you're probably going to take a drink. But if you catch it, you know the analogy that we're talking about. Esther in San Francisco loved those hills and hated them at the same time, could not believe people were driving on them. So we said, imagine. Exactly. That's what she said. So we said, imagine being at the top of the hill, take your brake off, push it a little just to see what'll happen. You know what's going to happen. So you come to your senses, you step out in front of it, you let it bump up against you. The car stops. You've stopped the problem. But you wouldn't want to be at the bottom of the hill stopping that momentum. So you just want to catch it earlier. And if you don't, no big deal. There is never a reason that is important enough or significant enough to get down on yourself. Because when you do, you've violated your most powerful intention of self-love. Really good.
Thank you.
Really good.